BTS News Today. The moment arrived quietly without warning, and yet it felt seismic. It was not announced with a press release, nor teased through schedules or cryptic captions. There was no stage lighting, no choreography, no explosive chorus to brace the audience for what was about to unfold. Instead, it came in the most disarming way possible. Jungkook's voice softened, his gaze lowered, and then his eyes filled with tears when Jimin's name surfaced in his confession. For fans who have followed BTS through a decade of triumphs, fractures, healing, and rebirth, this was not just an emotional slip. It was a revelation that seemed to pull back the curtain on years of unspoken truths. In the world of global pop, where every gesture is scrutinized and every sentence can become a headline, tears are rarely accidental. Jungkook has cried before, as any artist who has lived his life under relentless pressure would, but this time felt different. There was a hesitation in his breath, a weight behind his silence, as though he were standing at the edge of something deeply personal, deciding whether to step forward or retreat. When he finally spoke about Jimin, the words were simple, almost painfully so, yet the emotion behind them was unmistakable. It was not the sorrow of loss, nor the exhaustion of fame alone. It was the ache of connection, of gratitude, of a bond that has shaped him in ways he may only now be fully understanding. To unpack the hidden meaning behind Jungkook's tears, one must first return to the beginning. Jungkook entered BTS as the youngest, a teenager surrounded by older members who would become brothers, mentors, and mirrors of his own evolving identity. Among them, Jimin stood out in a way that fans noticed almost immediately. Their dynamic was never static. It shifted from playful teasing to fierce loyalty, from shared laughter to moments of quiet understanding that cameras could barely capture. In the early years, Jungkook often spoke about learning confidence by watching Jimin, about being inspired by his dedication and emotional honesty. These were not empty compliments. They were admissions of dependence, of growth forged through proximity to someone who demanded more from himself and from those around him. As BTS rose from obscurity to global phenomenon, the pressures multiplied. Schedules tightened, expectations soared, and the margin for vulnerability shrank. In such an environment, emotional expression becomes both a necessity and a risk. Jungkook, often perceived as resilient and endlessly capable, learned to carry weight silently. Jimin, on the other hand, never fully hid his sensitivity, even when it cost him. This contrast became one of the defining elements of their relationship. Jungkook absorbed strength from Jimin's honesty, while Jimin found reassurance in Jungkook's steadiness. It was a quiet exchange, rarely articulated but deeply felt. The confession that led to Jungkook's tears did not explicitly recount all of this history, yet it echoed through every pause and tremor in his voice. When he spoke of feeling supported at his lowest moments, of being understood without needing to explain himself, the subtext was clear. He was acknowledging a debt that could not be repaid with words alone. Tears in that moment became a language of their own. They spoke of nights spent talking off camera, of doubts shared in whispers, of encouragement offered when the world felt overwhelming. Fans quickly began to analyze the moment, replaying clips, dissecting expressions, searching for clues. Some saw it as confirmation of what they had always believed, that Jungkook and Jimin share a bond deeper than what is typically shown. Others cautioned against overinterpretation, reminding everyone that emotion does not always require a grand narrative. Yet even the most reserved observers could not deny that something meaningful had been revealed. This was not a performance. There was no script for tears that catch in the throat, no rehearsal for vulnerability that feels so raw. What makes Jungkook's confession particularly compelling is its timing. Coming after years of intense public scrutiny and personal evolution, it suggests a shift in how he views himself and his relationships. Jungkook is no longer the boy who debuted with wide eyes and boundless energy. He is an artist who has confronted burnout, self-doubt, and the weight of expectations placed upon him since adolescence. In this context, his tears for Jimin take on a new dimension. They are not only about gratitude for the past, but also about recognition in the present. They signify an understanding that survival in this industry, and perhaps in life, has been made possible by connections that anchor him when everything else feels unstable. Jimin's role in this narrative cannot be separated from his own journey. Known for his relentless self-criticism and desire to improve, Jimin has often spoken about struggling with insecurity despite outward success. To be someone who offers comfort while fighting his own battles is no small feat. Jungkook's tears may well reflect an awareness of this sacrifice. They suggest a realization that emotional labor, often invisible, has been a constant presence in his life. Acknowledging it publicly is not just an act of gratitude, but also one of respect. There's also a broader cultural context to consider. In an industry that often discourages male vulnerability, especially on a global stage, Jungkook's tears challenge long-standing norms. They invite a reevaluation of what strength looks like. Rather than diminishing his image, the confession has deepened it. Fans and casual viewers alike have responded with empathy, seeing in his emotion a reflection of their own unspoken feelings. In this sense, Jungkook's moment transcends fandom boundaries. It becomes a shared human experience, a reminder that even those who seem untouchable carry emotional scars and debts of love. As discussions continue, theories multiply. Some interpret the tears as a response to recent events, others as a culmination of years of suppressed emotion. The truth may lie somewhere in between or perhaps beyond what can be articulated at all. What is certain is that Jungkook's confession has altered the way many perceive his relationship with Jimin. It has shifted the narrative from speculation to acknowledgement, from surface-level observation to deeper understanding. In the aftermath, silence followed. No clarifications were issued, no further explanations offered. This silence, too, carries meaning. It suggests that not everything needs to be dissected or defined. Some emotions exist precisely because they resist categorization. Jungkook's tears for Jimin may never be fully explained, and perhaps that is their power. They stand as a testament to a bond forged in shared struggle, nurtured through trust, and expressed in a moment when words were no longer enough. Ultimately, Jungkook's confession invites us to reconsider how we listen, not just to what is said but to what is felt. In a world saturated with noise, tears can be a form of truth, and in those tears shed for Jimin lies a story of connection that continues to unfold, quietly shaping both their lives and the hearts of those who watch, listen, and feel alongside them. The story does not end with the tears themselves. In many ways, that moment marked the beginning of a deeper conversation, one that continues to ripple through the fandom and beyond. Jungkook's confession, brief as it may have seemed, opened a door into a space that BTS has often approached but rarely entered so openly. The fragile intersection between brotherhood, emotional dependence, and unspoken love that forms when people grow up together under extraordinary circumstances. After the initial shock faded, many began revisiting old footage with new eyes. Clips from years ago suddenly felt heavier, layered with meanings that had gone unnoticed before. Moments when Jungkook lingered beside Jimin after a performance, when his laughter softened around him, when his voice changed almost imperceptibly while calling Jimin's name. These were not dramatic gestures, but they were consistent, and consistency is often where truth hides. Jungkook's tears seemed to illuminate these memories, turning casual interactions into fragments of a much larger emotional mosaic. There is something profoundly intimate about crying for someone rather than for oneself. Jungkook did not speak of his own pain directly in that moment. Instead, his emotions surfaced when acknowledging what Jimin had meant to him, what he had provided silently over the years. This distinction matters. It suggests that Jungkook's confession was less about personal suffering and more about recognition. Recognition of support that had been steady even when everything else felt uncertain. Recognition of a presence that did not demand explanation or justification. For Jungkook, who has often been labeled as naturally talented, gifted, and seemingly effortless, this acknowledgement carries particular weight. Talent can become a cage as much as a blessing. When the world assumes you are always strong, always capable, the space to be weak narrows. Jimin, perhaps because of his own openness about vulnerability, may have been one of the few people who allowed Jungkook to step out of that cage without judgment. Tears in this sense become an apology as much as a thank you. An apology for moments when gratitude went unspoken, when reliance was taken for granted. Jimin's influence on Jungkook has never been one-directional. Their bond has always been marked by reciprocity. Jungkook has often been Jimin's anchor as well, offering grounding energy when emotions ran high. This mutual dependence is not a sign of weakness but of trust. To lean on someone is to believe they will not let you fall. Jungkook's confession implicitly affirms that trust has been honored time and again. The public nature of the moment adds another layer of complexity. Jungkook did not have to share this. He could have chosen restraint, composure, the safety of ambiguity. Instead, he allowed the world to witness something unfinished and unresolved. This choice speaks to a quiet courage. Vulnerability, especially in front of millions, is an act of defiance against expectations. It disrupts the polished image of idols as endlessly composed and emotionally contained. What followed was a wave of emotional resonance among fans. Many saw themselves reflected in Jungkook's struggle to articulate gratitude for someone who shaped them profoundly. Friendships that feel like lifelines, relationships that blur the line between family and something more expansive, are rarely easy to define. Jungkook's tears validated those experiences without numbing them. In doing so, he offered comfort to those who have felt similarly bound to someone who changed their life simply by staying. There is also an undercurrent of time running through this confession. BTS's journey has reached a point where reflection becomes inevitable. Years have passed in relentless motion, leaving little room to pause and look back. Jungkook's emotions suggest that he's beginning to see his past not just as a series of achievements, but as a landscape shaped by people who walked beside him. Jimin stands at the center of that landscape, not as a footnote, but as a constant. Silence after such a moment can be deafening, yet it is also respectful. Neither Jungkook nor Jimin rush to contextualize or explain. This restraint allows the emotion to exist without being diluted by clarification. It acknowledges that some truths lose their power when dissected too thoroughly. The absence of commentary becomes a boundary. gently reminding the audience that intimacy, even when glimpsed, is not owed full access. As time passes, the memory of Jungkook's tears may settle into something quieter, less urgent, but no less significant. It will likely be remembered not as a dramatic incident but as a turning point, a moment when an artist known for strength allowed softness to take center stage, when gratitude found expression not through eloquent speech but through emotion that overflowed despite restraint. In the end, unpacking the hidden meaning behind Jungkook's tears for Jimin may never yield a definitive answer, and perhaps it should not. The power of that confession lies precisely in its openness, its refusal to be neatly categorized. It reminds us that the deepest bonds are often the hardest to explain, and that sometimes the most honest confession is the one that arrives without full understanding, carrying